Okay, so early in the semester, I'm just starting to review the very intro projects for some students, and I think the challenge always at the beginning, there's always the syntax issue of just figuring out what the commands are, where the damn semicolons go, and stuff like that. But I think the other thing is just getting used to the idea of this is a different way of making. It's a different way of working, because we're so used to just being explicit as humans, so the whole idea here is I'm going to set up specific locations on my canvas and I'm going to make these shapes happen. So the student here has this, I'll just go ahead and play this. These interesting shapes, right? They've chosen a location, a first location, a second, and then just they're using as a variable, they're drawing things across the screen, right? But at this point, it always ends up being the same, the drawing, and we're using a lot of hard-coded numbers. So what I wanted to do is kind of break this down, hopefully helpful to the student and others that might be trying to wrap their brain about what generative art and design can be in that, and give some examples here in the code. So hopefully this will help. I already went through, before I did this tutorial, I was just looking at the student projects, and the first thing I did was trying to understand, where is everything in the code, what's doing what. So all I did at the very beginning was just select a bunch of this, of the code that was existing code, and I just commented it out. So command with the / there, right? So with the 2 slashes there, that just disables the code. And now I just have this one element, right? So I can see, and the other ones were doing the same thing. So this is like the building block. So the idea here is not how can I put this exactly in this location, but how can I use this element and have the computer generate elements like it that do similar things and in ways that I want to generally control to a certain level. But how can I use the computer to just randomize and give me new options and new variations of that? So what I want to do is just look at how we might do that. So I guess the first point is we have 1 location and 2 locations, but these are hard-coded locations. And then, in fact, we have 2 different lines here. Actually, I want to get rid of, let's just take that one out of there too. This one is over here on the side. There we go. So let's just what I'm going to do is just delete all this. Okay. So I understand the idea. Now I just need to figure out, well, how do I build on that? I guess the other thing too is we don't need any of these variables anymore, right? We just have H. And it's the same thing. All right. So there was, in the code I just deleted, there was a command for stroke, right? Which was what color the line is. What I'm going to do is still make it, for now, just the dark color, right? Almost black. But just so that it doesn't get so clogged down in here, so it just becomes a hard shape, I'm going to say 128 random. So for stroke, it accepts, if it's 1 argument, it's just grayscale. If it's 2 arguments, it's grayscale with transparency, right? The second one is the transparent value. And again, since we're using RGB, this goes from 0 to 255. So I've just made this either totally transparent to halfway transparent, right? So now I get a little bit of variability within the line, and it isn't so just thick black. We'll use that for now. Okay, so that's good. So if I run this right now, I always get the same thing, right? But what if I wanted to just click or press a button and have it choose a new location, like a new origin, right? To keep drawing these as we go along. So obviously we need a variable, right? If we want any change to happen. So let's create something called dx, and that's Dane's, in fact, let's just make it lowercase. Dane's x and Dane's y. All right, so dx and dy, I haven't assigned it yet, so it just is 0. But let's go in here and say, you know what? I like that it happens here, but I bet it would work if it happened in a lot of different places. So let's just say random width, dy, random height. So let's press play. Oh, and then the last thing is, so I've assigned these variables and they have a value. I haven't plugged them in. So dx, distracted because my cat is meowing outside my office door. Right? So now every time I start the program, it is still doing that diagonal, which we'll talk about, right? But the origin point right here, like the tip of the line, right? It ends up in a new location. So if I like that and I want it to keep happening on my canvas, what I need to do is, instead of just refreshing the program, which erases the previous ones, I need to interact with it some way, right? And lots of different ways we could do this, but my default to just try things really quick is function key released, right? So this is an event that sits, let's leave that there, let's put that one there. Actually, let's leave those variables so I can see them. All right, so this event down here, anytime I release a key on the keyboard, this sends a message to the program that, like, hey, I've got some new instructions for you, or we need to make some changes based on whatever code I put right here. So what if I just copy and pasted this code, right? At the very beginning, it starts drawing this thing. What if I just press and release a button and it resets the location, but it doesn't reset the program, right? It just keeps going. So I'll just take this, copy, paste, and boom. All right, so it's kind of working. So it's not bad, but I'm getting these weird spikes, right? Let's reset the program. So why is this happening? Well, we've chosen a new location, but the H value, which is why we're getting a diagonal, because it's being the X and the Y for the second location, that is going elsewhere in the, it just keeps going, right? So if let's try it this way. Right, so those continue to race off the page. So I need to reset that, unless this is what I'm trying to do, but I don't think that's really what I want to do. So what if every time I draw this is all diagonal. So what if I did this down the middle? So what if I said, let's always draw it down the middle of the screen, no matter where this origin point is, let's always draw it towards the middle of the canvas. But let's make H, so we've defined H right here at the beginning. What if I actually did what I did with the others? What if I said, you know what, this H is actually equal to the random height. Okay, so this just says anywhere within here, choose the random height, which is a number, right? Choose 123. I will start here. Choose 500 and something. I will start down here. And every time I release a key, press and release that key. Oops, let's make sure we spelled things right. That's better. So we're still using H here. I don't have to change it, but let's see what we get. Right? So we're getting there. In fact, I'm going to reset this. Oh, I have to click on the screen. So every time I select or press the key, press and release the key, you can see that I'm getting a new location. I like the fact that there's a clear breaking point, right, in the this middle section, right? That's kind of nice. So I'm getting a similar drawing to what the student had started with, but every time I run the program now, I can get a slightly different drawing. And I'm pressing the keys based on how I want it to draw, right? Like where I think it would be interesting that these things match up with each other. Okay, let's try one last thing for this. Let's create one last variable. Let's do let DC. So this is Dane's color. And Dane's color is going to equal, again, just going to use random since we've been using that in class. And let's make this 255. So anything between 0 and 255. And since we're using RGB, that would mean anything from black to white. I've added the transparency is still in there, right? So we have something kind of soft as the shading works. In fact, maybe I'll make this anything between 20 and 100. Oops, not point. And so we use random this way. Let's break this down. So stroke, and if I put two values in here, let's look at it this way. So the first one is whatever this random is, and every time I release the key, right, I want a new one. So at the very beginning, it starts with this randomized set of instructions, and every time I release the key, it does it exactly similar to what it started doing, but with variability built into it, right? So we choose a random, we get a number that happens to be anything between 0 and whatever the total width is. It gives us a number between 0 and whatever the total height is randomly in there. Same thing for our color. And from a syntax standpoint, we have DC, we have random with the parentheses, right, that say, give me a random number between 20 and 100. So some level of transparency every single frame, right? So this is why we're getting variability every single line, because each frame, it chooses slightly different results on how it should shade that line, the stroke of that line. Let's put this there too. All right, let's see what we get now. So a little softer, totally down with this so far, a little softer. It's almost like pencil shading at this point, right? Oh, we got our first little light value. So now with this randomized light and dark, we can build up a little contrast as this goes along. All right, so I'm going to keep clicking on my little drawing as this goes along. Let's just see what we get. So in doing this, I intentionally tried to keep the basics of this simple, right? Just looking at the idea, if I take this really simple little element, how much variability can I get in this drawing while still having it look cohesive because it's using a similar set of instructions, right, for what it's doing. There we go. Needed something there towards the top. I could make this a lot more robust with whatever kind of logic I would want to introduce into the program. But already I'm getting something interesting, I would feel like is a drawing. I like the line quality. I'm getting some contrast in light and dark that I like. Every once in a while I press the button and I don't see the what's being drawn just because it's probably matching the background color pretty closely because it can choose a gray value that's close to that. Sorry, I'm just enjoying my little drawing here. All right, I'll let this be the last one. All right, so I have a drawing, it has some nice line quality. I will say in processing or P5, using a little bit of transparency on the line, unless you're really trying to do just a hardcore graphic line, it just makes it look better in my mind, even just a little bit. It just softens the edge, it blends a little bit. It just feels like a little subtler drawing instead of these hard edges that maybe have a little aliasing going on. So let's review here. The student had already built up an interesting idea, but they were using hard-coded values, right? That they had to specifically put a number down. And I think that's a good place to start, right? But once you start seeing aesthetically, well, that's an interesting visual element. How can I build this out and use the strengths of the computer to randomly generate numbers, choose numbers, add numbers, divide numbers, whatever I want? So all I need to do is interact with it with my mouse or with the keyboard to make decisions as an artist and designer and figure out, and if I get to the point that maybe I didn't like what it's doing here, maybe I want to put, instead of the random height, maybe I should limit it, that, it has to be at least 100 pixels in and it has to be at least 100 pixels from the total height, so I don't get anything all the way at the top or all the way at the bottom. Or maybe it's always in the middle here in this range. You can put constraints on it to control what's going on. But this is obviously a pretty compact piece of code. I had some variables for the starting point. We have a variable for the height of the end point for the line. We constrained it always to the width, and we're incrementing across that, so it's always adding 3 pixels. I mean, we could create another variable that randomly varies how it moves down the page, whether it's fast or slow. And we put all of that just into this easy key release function. So anything that I wanted to do at the very beginning to start this, I can just use this as like a reset to reset the drawing tool to slightly new locations and variables and have it continue to do its little magic. All right, 17 minutes. I really want to just focus on the concepts here and just show that we could get a lot of interesting work out of some simple stuff here. But this is a new way of thinking if you're not used to coding. So give yourself some time and keep experimenting. Happy coding.